This week we're continuing the series on Jesus, or about Jesus, I should say. Martin's already taken us through Jesus, our intercessor. We then looked at Jesus, our advocate, and then Jesus, rich in mercy, then Jesus, our provider. And last week, George looked at Jesus, the absolute perfect will of God. So this week, we're looking at a different aspect of Jesus, and we're looking at Jesus, my governor. And you might say, hang on a minute, Phil, where does it say that in the Bible? And I would say, probably nowhere. Not even in the Mickey Mouse version. But it has lots of passages where it sort of infers that meaning of Jesus, my governor. If we look at 1 Timothy 6:15, it says, talks about Jesus as being the blessed and only sovereign, the King of kings and the Lord of lords. In Revelation 1 verse 4, it talks about Jesus as ruler of the kings of the earth. In Revelation 19:16, it talks about Jesus as King of kings and Lord of lords. Ephesians 1:21 says, God has put Christ over all rulers, authorities, powers and kings, not only in this world, but also in the next. God put everything under his power and made him the head over everything for the church, which is Christ's body. The church is filled with Christ, and Christ fills everything in every way. And there's more. Matthew 28 verse 18, it says, Then Jesus came to them and said, All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Jude 1 verse 4, it says, Jesus Christ, our only sovereign and Lord. Acts 10 verse 36, Jesus Christ, who is Lord of all. Philippians 2 verse 9, Therefore, God elevated him to the place of highest honour and gave him the name above all other names, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow, in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue declare that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Now I could just leave it there and leave you to ponder on all those fantastic verses, and I'm sure there's plenty more I could have picked out, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about just unpicking it a little bit. So we often refer to the Lord Jesus or King Jesus or Jesus having the name above all other names. We say Jesus is Lord or sovereign or has authority, and by this we really mean he is the boss. He is someone who possesses power and control. So in modern language, Jesus is the managing director. He is the CEO. He's the chairman. He's the president. He's the controller. He's the presiding officer. He's the operations manager. He's the commander-in-chief. He's the boss. He's the head honcho. He's the numero uno. He is the governor. You kind of get the idea. And he is all those things of everything in this world, which includes us and our lives. He's not only the governor of the whole world, he is our personal governor. Now, I'm sure you can sort of relate that we have human bosses, we have human managers, people we're accountable to, and we kind of know what makes a good boss and what doesn't. We've probably had experience of that somewhere in our lives. But we kind of have to accept that every human who has ever lived is flawed. They are not perfect, they will make mistakes, they will let others down, and they will disappoint us. But Jesus was perfect. Jesus does not fail. Jesus does not disappoint. Now, in our human lives, we can look up to a good boss and look to them for inspiration and encouragement and guidance and education and authority, but they're still not perfect. And they can't always give us what we want. We really need to look to the ultimate boss if we want to receive true inspiration, true encouragement, true guidance, true education, and true authority. Just sort of continuing that a little bit further, if we disappoint our human boss, they might get mad at us. If we disappoint Jesus, he will remain mad about us. Not at us, about us. There's a massive difference there. If we fall out with our boss, they might want to avoid us. If we move away from Jesus, he just can't wait to embrace us and welcome us back. And with our boss, we might have perhaps an annual review or an appraisal to look at whether you've hit your targets and your achievements and any failures and all that team working. I hate those sorts of things. Terrible. But you don't really do an annual review with members of your family or your best friends. It's a different sort of relationship there. And Jesus doesn't have an annual review with us. His door is always open to discuss anything on our mind, to resolve any sort of difficulties. We don't need to wait. He's always there. He's always available. Bosses can be very distant and a sort of a big figurehead just out there somewhere who's never seen and only known by their reputation, especially in a huge organisation. If you work at the local branch of Tesco's, you might possibly know the name of the CEO, but the chances of you knowing them personally are pretty remote, to put it mildly. The chances of them knowing anything about you are almost non-existent, apart from just a number of thousands of employees. Thinking about Jesus, he's not only the president, he's not only the CEO, the commander-in-chief, but he's also our one-to-one supervisor and our friend who we can turn to. Again, if you worked at the local Tesco's and your mum or dad was the chief executive, then they would know you well. You would have a personal relationship. You would have direct access. There would be both your boss and someone you can turn to easily. And Jesus is both our boss and our friend. People are sometimes asked the question, who inspires you? Who's your hero? Who's your role model? Who do you look up to? And people might say a winning sportsman, a footballer, an Olympian, or perhaps a successful business person, or a clever scientist, or perhaps a leading politician, or some sort of generous benefactor. However, there's only one answer that people should really give. And I'm sure I don't have to spell it out to you, really. Jesus is ruler of all. He rules in our hearts, in our minds, in our thoughts, in our actions. And sometimes we can be good at crying out to God when we need help or specific guidance, or we've lost our keys, or we get ill. And we can also be very good at ignoring God other times in our life, when we feel that we don't really need him. He kind of gets squeezed out of it. And even though Christ has the ultimate authority, he is not an authoritarian. He doesn't really enforce strict obedience to his authority at the expense of our personal freedom. That's not the way he works. In fact, finding Christ and obeying Christ gives us freedom. So what do I mean by that? How can we be free if we're slavishly tied to a master? Well, Galatians 5 verse 1 gives the answer. It says, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourselves be burdened again by a yoke of slavery." So we are freed from the old way of life. We're freed from sin, we're freed from guilt, and we're brought into a new life. It's a new relationship with Jesus and a new ability to enjoy life. Jesus wants a close relationship with you. And the only way that happens is by Jesus freeing you from your old life. And that allows you to build that relationship without any fear or any worry. And you can enter into his presence with confidence because you know he wants you there. And all those hindrances in the past have been taken away. And this is living free. John 10 verse 10 says, Jesus says, "I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." So Jesus needs to be in our lives all of the time, being King and Lord of our lives, as well as our best friend. So how many bosses can we also call our friend or even our best friend? I remember going back a few years, it was the year 2000, and I just started a new job. So 21 years ago, it isn't my life. Year 2000, new job, new employer, everything was new. And I was given a task to do, to meet up with somebody else who worked for somebody else, and I was given the task to sort out the situation, which had been bubbling along for ages, and nobody sorted it out. So I was given the joyful task to meet up with this person and sort out the situation. So I didn't know this other guy, but I arranged to meet him, and the first time I met him, he said, "Hey, you all right, buddy?" And then from then on after, it was always my pal, my friend, mate, or just bud. And that was all he called me. He didn't call me my name. It was always buddy or bud or mate or pal or friend. But really, I felt a bit uncomfortable with that. I didn't know him. All I knew was his name and his job. He didn't know me. All he knew about me was my name and my job. He wasn't really my friend at all. He wasn't my buddy. He wasn't my pal. He wasn't my mate. It just wasn't genuine. But when we meet Jesus for the first time, he can genuinely call us his buddy, his mate, his friend, because he's known us since before we were born. He knit us together in our mother's womb in Psalm 139. He knows us intimately. He's watched us all our lives. And that's quite difficult for our feeble minds to take in, really, how we can know everybody so intimately. But that is the truth. And Jesus' kingdom spreads all across the whole world, but he still knows everybody individually and intimately. So Jesus can be both our friend and our governor. Now, as we go through life, we might have a close friend who we can share everything with. We can have sort of deep secrets and dark habits in our lives that we keep from other people sometimes. But we shouldn't really keep secrets from friends. And we can have sin and guilt and shame in our lives and things we're not proud of, sort of bad habits and bad urges and something in our past that we're not proud of. Just give them to Jesus. Give them to your best friend. And give him your whole life. Not just a bit of it, not just part of it. Give him everything. Let Jesus fully reign in your life. Just remember who has won the battle and who has the power over all authorities and powers. Remember that because of Jesus, you are fully forgiven and fully freed. We no longer have the burden of the old life we used to live. Jesus is the governor now. Our old ways have gone. Now, I'm sure it couldn't escape your attention that a few months ago there was a certain football competition going on in and around Europe. And you may have heard of somebody called Gareth Southgate. And Gareth Southgate, although he didn't get us to where we wanted to go, he was still praised for his good leadership skills. And there are 5 specific things he was praised for. He was honest and authentic. He had a master plan and he was brave with his decisions. He was positive and generous. He trusted his people and he led by example. Okay, all 5 good leadership qualities. If you think about those qualities, Jesus has exactly the same skill set. He is honest and authentic. He has a master plan and he's brave with his decisions. He's positive and generous. He trusts his people and he leads by example. But then, if you also think about qualities that a good boss has, there's a lot more to it. And there's a lot more qualities that Jesus also has in his leadership skills. A good leader gives clear leadership and instruction. So does Jesus. A good boss is wise and knowledgeable. So does Jesus. A good boss listens to us and understands us. So does Jesus. A good boss is concerned about our problems and our difficulties. So does Jesus. A good boss can multitask. So can Jesus. A good boss always has time for us. So does Jesus. A good boss is honest and trustworthy. So is Jesus. A good boss makes it clear how we're expected to behave. So does Jesus. A good boss is always happy to see us. So is Jesus. A good boss is not controlling or manipulative. Same with Jesus. And a good boss inspires us and motivates us. So does Jesus. Jesus is also our Father, or God is also our Father and our friend. He needs us to trust, to listen, and to obey. Okay, so now we sort of come on to the challenge. What's this all about? How can it affect us in our lives? Well, I would suggest that if we have Jesus in our lives, then he's either Lord of all, or he's not Lord at all. Either Lord of all, or not Lord at all. He can't be Lord if we don't give everything to him. It just doesn't work if we have a boss that we don't listen to, that we don't respect, and we frankly ignore some of the time. I'll ask this question: how can you tell when a king is ruling over a kingdom? Well, you see his influence, and you see his people wanting to do his will. When we follow a leader, we need to have respect for that leader, and we need to trust them. And we also need to communicate. And that means giving God your worries, your concerns, your doubts, your secrets, giving him your bad habits, but also giving him your thanks and your praise and your love and your adoration. Give him everything. Give him your whole life. What you do, what you think, where you go, who you meet, what you talk about, everything. Treat him as your best friend and also respect him as your boss. So, as we've looked at, Jesus is undoubtedly the boss, but he doesn't necessarily act or behave in the way that you would expect a boss to behave. He's not controlling, he's not manipulative, he's generous and he's kind. And if you have a problem in life, the natural thing would be to talk to a friend, or in the work environment, talk to a boss. Well, we can do both with Jesus. He is both our friend and our boss. We can talk to him at any time. If we're worried, we can talk to him. If we're grateful and thankful and excited, we can talk to him. Jesus cares about you. He cares about your life. He wants to be in your life. He wants to be part of your life. And he wants to guide you, and he wants to direct you. He wants the very best for you. He loves you. Jesus has the power to change things in your life. And the question is, for today really, are we prepared to let him be ruler of our lives, to be our governor? I'm just going to wrap this up by reading a song. It was written in 1945, so go back a few years, and it was written as a simple children's song. I expect George will remember where it came out. And I'm just going to read it. I've changed the word Father to the word Jesus, but otherwise it's just as it was written. And I'm just going to read it as a prayer. And it'd be great if we can just say this as I read it out. And it goes like this. Jesus, I place into your hands the things I cannot do. Jesus, I place into your hands the things that I've been through. Jesus, I place into your hands the way that I should go, for I know I always can trust you. Jesus, I place into your hands my friends and family. Jesus, I place into your hands the things that trouble me. Jesus, I place into your hands the person I would be, for I know I always can trust you. Jesus, we love to see your face. We love to hear your voice. Jesus, we love to sing your praise and in your name rejoice. Jesus, we love to walk with you and in your presence rest, for we know we always can trust you. Amen.